Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a subject that's been stirring up controversy: the European Union's support for Ukraine versus its ongoing payments for Russian gas. There's a lot of talk about whether the EU is playing a dangerous double game. Let's break it down and look at the numbers, policies, and real-world implications. Since the conflict in Ukraine began, the EU has emerged as one of the strongest voices for Ukraine's sovereignty. They've provided billions in humanitarian aid, imposed strict sanctions on Russia, and offered political, and in some cases, military support. This public commitment is intended to show unity and a dedication to democratic values. But while EU leaders make these powerful statements on the international stage, there's a growing debate about what happens behind the scenes. Critics ask, if the EU is truly committed to standing against Russian aggression, why does it continue to engage in energy deals with Russia? The answer lies in a complex web of energy dependency. Many EU countries, particularly in Eastern Europe, have relied on Russian gas for decades. This isn't a recent development. It's the result of long-term contracts, old infrastructure, and deep-rooted economic ties that aren't easy to break. In 2022, at the height of the conflict, estimates suggest that the EU paid around €40 billion for Russian gas. This figure represents payments made under both long-term contracts and spot market transactions, a significant financial commitment that, to many, appears to indirectly support a regime that is actively engaged in a conflict with Ukraine. Earlier projections had indicated that the cumulative payments over the entire war period, from 2022 through 2025, might have reached between €60 and €70 billion. However, as the EU accelerated its efforts to diversify its energy sources, investing in renewables and securing alternative LNG contracts, experts now predict that additional payments after 2022 could drop to around €10 to €20 billion. This shift highlights both the scale of the initial dependency and the ongoing transition away from Russian gas. Critics argue that this situation sends a mixed message. On one hand, the EU stands firm in its support for Ukraine and condemns Russian aggression. On the other, it continues to pay billions for Russian gas, which some see as indirectly propping up the very system it publicly opposes. Yet, there are important counterarguments to consider. Supporters of the current policies contend that energy infrastructure and long-term contracts can't simply be undone overnight. For millions of people across Europe, particularly in Eastern Europe, an abrupt cessation of Russian gas imports could lead to severe energy shortages, soaring prices, and economic instability. The real challenge is balancing ethical stances with the practical need to ensure reliable and affordable energy for everyone. This issue goes beyond energy. It reflects the broader complexities of international policymaking. The EU's situation exposes a tension between idealism and practicality. While the public message is clear, the economic realities force compromises that can seem contradictory at times. Looking ahead, the EU is actively working to reduce its reliance on Russian gas through accelerated investments in renewable energy and efforts to secure alternative suppliers. Yet, this transition is gradual, and the figures, from the estimated €40 billion in 2022 to the significantly lower projected payments in the following years, underscore both the magnitude of the dependency and the slow path toward a more sustainable energy future. In conclusion, the EU's actions reveal a tough truth. Global politics often demand a delicate balance between high ideals and economic realities. While the EU vocally supports Ukraine on the international stage, the continued financial ties through energy contracts paint a more complicated picture. Understanding these nuances is key to grasping the challenges of international policy today. Every decision involves tough trade-offs, and in this case, the path forward requires navigating between principled support for Ukraine and the practical necessities of energy security.